After a lot of chaos and a lot of news articles and videos and people being outraged, we haven't heard much about G5 or 5G, depending on which news site you were reading. What's happened to it? Is it canceled? Is it over? Has DC put an end to it in a blow for fan outrage everywhere? Probably not. But let's talk a little bit about where it's at, what we know, and more importantly, would this initiative have worked had it gone as planned? Hey everybody, this is Perch. I made one big mistake in that opening, and this is where if I just took some extra time to edit, that'd probably be a good idea. But I said, would 5G or G5 have worked as planned? And unfortunately, that's not a true statement. What I said there wasn't true because we don't know what was planned. All we heard was what they were planning from an unreliable, emphasize unreliable third party who really was motivated to get clicks and get people outraged more than anything else. In an article about 2 weeks ago or so, Bleeding Cool updated with a bunch of information saying, hey, a lot of stuff with 5G isn't happening after all. In particular, they were saying, here's this new unknown writer that's going to take over Batman. Here's, all the characters going to change into new, super diverse versions of themselves. And so this was the article saying, well, maybe some of this stuff isn't happening. It now looks like it isn't happening. Their earlier articles are starting to get contradicted by people like James Tinian, who says, he's got Batman ideas well past 100. It's also being contradicted by sales. That run is doing quite well. And death metal is coming along and has some other pieces to it. So unfortunately, this story, as time goes on, is aging badly. It's clear that a lot of the things that were claimed in the original Bleeding Cool articles, that then many others, from CBR to Comic Book News to Screen Rant and others, they all picked up on and kind of chased the same donkey around. But it now looks increasingly less true that this is going to happen. Now, you might say, "Wow, how did this occur?" And why haven't more people picked up on this in the past? Well, the reality is these sites have done misleading stories all along. This isn't a new phenomenon. The difference is, and this is true of a lot of clickbait sites outside of comics, is that they bounce from topic to topic. So before you have a chance to realize that it's nonsense and these things aren't happening, there's a new clickbait article up that kind of it adds to the story, changes it, and so you're always chasing this target that never really exists. You're chasing rumors and gossip, and you don't really. It's not so clear that it's not true. But this time it's a little different because we had the pandemic hit. We had comics go on hiatus for about 2 months, and suddenly it with no news, there was no ability to chase other rumors. Bleeding Cool got bad egg on its face when it revealed the big scoop that Midtown and DCBS were these new distributors about an hour before the distributors just released that information themselves as part of their planned event. And so that big, hey, how about this outrage story didn't come to pass. And so they're left with 5G. The other thing I think that happened is that Bleeding Cool did not anticipate that so many people would hop on the 5G story, either to be outraged and pissed or just to want to talk about it. And so it unlike some of their other rumors and gossip that could kind of come and go in the night, this one got so much traction that suddenly they were being held to it. So it's funny, in a recent article, they say they do the kind of the classic liar trick of, well, some people are going to claim we were lying. But just stories of when you come out and you say that in your clickbait article, you go like, well, some people are claiming we're lying. It means you were. You're trying to like bury the lead there with with your language there, but you got it got pointed out it wasn't the case. So what do we know about 5G? Well, first off, we know it was changed when Dan Didio left and death metal was reworked, and then the pandemic hit and scheduling. All those three factors all kind of came together. We know that a lot of the scheduling plans shifted. That much is certain. We know this because the Generation 1, Generation 2, the early specials were pulled from solicitations. They haven't come out yet. And these are supposed to be the kind of the things that were leading up to painting the picture for DC's future. So we know those are they still exist. They may get pulped, but we know that art was done. We know that material was prepared for them. We know that some changes are probably being made, but we know at least some material is ready. We also know that some stories were written for Wonder Woman that by Scott Snyder for her anniversary issue that was published, and we know that tied in a little bit to Death Metal, which is supposed to feature Wonder Woman. But this idea that all the heroes are going to be, retired, basically, that the entire DC universe is going to age up permanently, 10 to 20 years or more, and suddenly this next generation would step in. The next generation would, of course, be a super diverse kind of everybody gets some representation. All races, all genders, all everything are suddenly there. And I'll insert this as a little side note right now. If the stories were good, I could frankly care less. And I know that differs from some of my listeners right now. I know that, the importance of legacy, the importance of having Barry Allen, for example, as the Flash is important. For me, if the story is really good, not hacky, not, too condescending, then I'm going to enjoy the comic no matter what character, what diverse character you have in there. The problem is that a lot of kind of mandated, cheap attention ploys that where they're trying to kind of force some things in, like the whole Bobby Drake becomes gay. I think there was a good story you could have told there of Bobby Drake being revealed to be gay, but they didn't do that story. They gave us a very kind of cheesy, hacky Bendis retcon that felt poorly done, to put it mildly. So the story itself was poor, and that's what at least I always react to. But anyway, I had heard pretty, from pretty direct sources that this was not going to be kind of the change to the entire DC universe. This was going to be, for lack of a word, an Age of Apocalypse type storyline, a temporary change to the books. And really, the timing was going to be, you have Death Metal, you have this Year of the Villain all stuff wrap up, you have this kind of big climactic battle, and then you get a jump to the future, and we see the next generation of some DC heroes for a short period of time, and then back we come. There were even the end of Flash Forward seemed to indicate this was the case with Bart. Now, why am I not Barry, Bart? God, Wally. Jesus, how am I forgetting this? Bart now. Too many damn flashes. Wally, who now has the powers of kind of Dr. Manhattan and the Metron chair, basically needing to fix time. So the elements were all prepared and ready for it. This kind of Age of Apocalypse style, or Future's End, if we want to use a DC example, view of the new history. And from everything I'm being told, that has not been canceled. That's not going away. That is still a story they want to tell. And frankly, if they do it right, probably a story that gets some interest. You remember Days of the Future Past and some of these X-Men storylines where we're pushed into the future and we see kind of new heroes, unfamiliar heroes, people who are villains who are now heroes. Just everything's kind of jumbled around a bit. This is a comic trope that they have done over and over. I mean, this isn't a new idea, and it typically is an idea that sells well. It's one that works for comics. And so the idea that DC was going to, do this same kind of, time shift and some new faces that you get to discover and who's the hero, who's the villain, all the rest. I mean, it's a very, very old, very established comic story that they were telling there. And I think they will still tell it. I think they're still definitely going to get around to it. And from everything I've heard, that's still a go. It has not been canceled, not been shifted. I think some people will claim that it was all canceled when really that the idea that DC was going to completely eliminate all of their old heroes and start fresh was never in the cards to begin with. And I think that's the key that really fits here is that a lot of people they're writing some checks that they couldn't cash. To put it mildly. So now I think what we will get is a shortened storyline, maybe rather than taking over all the books. I had never heard that it was going to take over all the books. I heard that just a few of the books, and really kind of like Age of Apocalypse did, it would be a self-contained storyline. That's what I had heard. That's kind of many different places. And now maybe even a little less than that, where DC really wants to strike with the iron hot, make sure that they have their core characters on full display, and that's what things look like. So that's what we know. That's a little bit about how we got here, and a little bit more about Why, some of this stuff, it shouldn't be so alarming. Too many videos, too many people jumped on this idea of DC's changing everything forever and they're forcing diversity down our throats and everything else. And the reality is, no. I mean, these future time skip type storylines are, they happen. They've happened for 30 years or more in comics. This isn't a new thing, and it shouldn't have created the reaction it did. But of course, the story itself was designed to create that reaction, and that's a little bit of why we got what we got. So, am I wrong? Will things play out differently? And it might. Anything is possible in comics. We'll see how it all plays out. But this is the best data I have from trusted, not just trusted sources, but also sources you can see yourselves. You can read the websites, you can see the articles, you can see all this stuff for yourself. It's not a big mystery. Anyway, hey, there you go. Do you have comments, questions, other feelings on how all this stuff will play out? Leave me a comment below. Like, subscribe, click the bell for notification if you'd like to, and follow me on Twitter and Facebook. But most importantly, thanks for listening.